Hello everyone, and welcome back to another session of Bloodborne PvP and another weapon showcase. This time I am using the stake driver, and guys, I love this weapon. It is really fun to use. It's not necessarily the most powerful weapon in the game, but it's got a few things about it, specifically that charged R2, that just make it really satisfying to use and especially to land that attack. So, getting started with the stake driver. This weapon requires 18 strength and 9 skill in order to wield. It has a C scaling in strength, a C scaling in skill, and a C scaling in arcane, so it is of course a quality weapon. The physical base damage of this weapon is 170, and for this video, like all my showcases, I use average blood gems. I don't use the top tier 27%. I'm using 3 18% blood gems. I think actually one of them might be a 19% now that I'm thinking about it, but either way, those are pretty much average, and I've got an attack rating of around 450 with those gems. So that sort of puts it into perspective of what I'm, using to get this damage. Also, with my higher tier blood gems, with those 27%, I can get over 500 attack rating with this thing, so it gets scarier than this. Just trust me when I say that, it gets a bit scarier than this does, so. Now, this weapon, the pros and the cons of it. First off, the biggest pro of this weapon is that charged R2 attack. I mean, it's got a 3.55 damage multiplier, and that's just insane. It's like this super massive, awesome Falcon Punch of goodness, and I love it. So, it is what it is with that. But other pros, the first form, its R1 attacks, they're fast sweeping attacks, and they're decently spammable. And its secondary form, the R1 attacks turn into thrusting attacks. They've got slightly more reach than the first form, so that's good. But I think they might be slightly slower. Honestly, the speed difference between those two forms, it's barely noticeable, and it doesn't really even matter in most cases. So there's that. Now, the first form will do more damage, and for the most part, the damage multipliers on its first form attacks are 0.3 to 0.5 times higher than the damage multipliers in its secondary form attacks. There are a few exceptions to this, of course. It's got the secondary form rather, it has higher damage multipliers on everything except for its R1 attack, its running R1 attack that is, which is the same. It's uncharged R2, which is actually 0.2 higher for the damage multiplier, and it's charged R2, which is a 3.55 times damage multiplier, which is just awesome. So, there's that. Now, some interesting things about it, whether these are pros or not, I'll leave that up to you. These are just some observations I've made. The transform attacks, when you're transforming from either first to second or second to first, either way, you can actually use that as a very reliable bait to get a disruption on someone. Just because with a lot of other weapons, when you go into your secondary form, you two-hand the weapon, or it goes to a two-handed form essentially, you don't have the use of your gun. Well, with this weapon you still do retain the use of your gun, and as such, it lets you shoot still, understandably. And, that's a good thing, because people will think, oh hey, he might be open, let's attack him, and well, you still have your gun. Use it. So, there's that. Also, it's R1 spam in either form. It's fast, relatively, but it's also slow enough to the point where people will be able to react in between your R1 spam, so they'll be able to dodge out in some cases. In a lot of cases, though, what they'll try to do is R1 spam you back in order to just hit you and then back off and possibly regain some of their health, or just to try and, turn things around. A lot of people who use fast weapons will try and do this tactic, where they'll just try and out R1 spam you. Well, by the time your second R1 comes, it'll disrupt their attack, so they won't be able to hit you in a lot of cases. But even more importantly than that, if you don't R1 spam them back, what you actually can do is just shoot them. And if they're one of these types of players that likes to try and out R1 spam you, and a lot of players who try to do this are Blade of Mercy and Chikage users, then you can shoot them while they try and R1 spam you back, and you'll disrupt them relatively frequently. So that's something really good to keep in mind, and I've found it works very reliably. So, also, according to the guide, its secondary form its charged R2 explosion actually counts as a blunt attack, which is interesting. So apparently if you use blunt attack increasing gems, that will actually affect its charged R2. So if you want to make it even more absurd of an R2 attack, well, that's how you do it. Also, its secondary form running and backstep R2. So typically the running R2s and backstep R2s, yeah, they're the same, of course, but typically they have like a special thing to them. Not the case with this weapon. With this weapon, you go into a standard R2. Thing is about it, it's significantly faster than a standard R2. Has the same damage multiplier, does the same damage, but it is significantly faster. So that's a good way to get off that extra bit of damage because it's got a 0.2 times higher damage multiplier than a first form R2. So it's just something good to mix things up and confuse people. Now, as far as the cons of the weapon are concerned, it's short. This weapon is short. It's not the shortest weapon in the game, but it is still not necessarily, the most reliable if you're going to be trying to hit someone who's far away. And that can lead to some problems. First off, you will be slightly out of range. Second, some of its attacks are shorter than others. Now that comes into play with its dashing attacks, I've noticed. When you're in your first form, I believe it is, your dashing attack, it is, well, not good. It's not good at all. I mean, it's fast, yes, but it's short, and you sort of do an uppercut at an angle. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, it might be its secondary form dash attack. Either way, it's one of those two, and it uppercuts at an angle, and that's not good because chances are your opponent is in a blind spot that it has. So watch out if you're doing that. Use it carefully. And with its secondary form, it's more linear, it's got longer reach, but as I just said, it's more linear, so it's pretty easy to dodge sideways out of it. But that's all I've got for the cons of this weapon. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, found it helpful in one way or another. I actually would like to take this time to mention I do have some Twitch t-shirts available. I'll have a link down below in the description if you guys are interested in them. Anyway, as I was saying, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you all next time.